So yeah, I was loving everything you were sharing about just like the concept of life and how much you're just really invested in life in that way. And I would really want to hear about what you're sharing with the why it's been more of this men's work and stuff that you're interested in. But what really stood out to me was that you're actually working in sexuality. Like you've got this really wide range of understanding of relationships and property and all the different ways that life works. And you've chosen to work specifically with sexuality. I'm curious to why that is.
Um, I have a number of reasons. One of which I think that there has to be an integration of the polarities within the individual for them to be a healthy individual. So, what I studied at university was called kinesiology. It's not the same thing as you guys think of in Australia. It's not muscle testing and stuff. What kinesiology in the United States is, it's a holistic wellness thing, but it's very science based, and it's around the micro and the macro of the body and movement kinetics, right? But it has to do with how can we have a healthy life in general outside of the physical form, and how does the physical form respond best? And for me, I've realized that through my university study and through my direct experiences in life and with other people, is that the polarities of the individuals, the masculine and the feminine, and the not just masculine and feminine, but there's a dark and a light aspect of each one of those that polarizes the other. There's also the spiritual and primal aspect of who we are. And what I mean by that is the spiritual is like the energy being, the feelings of emotionality, the higher awareness. And then there's the primal animal, which is just this biological robot suit that we're walking around in, this antenna of sorts that picks up energy and transmits energy. It also is an animal that has a consciousness of its own, that has feelings and desires and wants of its own. And it is very much communicating to our brain through biochemical signals and letting us know what it wants. And oftentimes people are confusing, you hear a lot of people so upset at themselves about being jealous, and they don't think it's like, I've done all the work already and it's not spiritual. And they berate themselves and they whip their back. And it's like, they don't realize that's the animal body communicating to you, and you have some agency over the way you experience it and how you relate to it. But the actual biochemical experiences, like let's say you see your partner eye gazing with somebody else and you have a feeling, that's the animal. And so I when I realize is that sexuality is a huge part of the animal. And so if I want to be a holistic, an empowered and healthy individual, then my sexuality is a massive part of my identity. I mean, we are sexual beings. We don't exist without sex. You came from an orgasm, so did I. And without sex, the species is dead. So it's an integral aspect of who we are as beings, and it's become taboo for a number of reasons. But I don't know, focus on that right now. But the fact that we've rejected and suppressed it is not an accident. I think it's a psyop agenda or something. There's a bigger agenda at play to fracture the individual from fundamental aspects of themselves. And without getting into the tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, to say that the direct experience of it today is the individual without an integrated sexuality does not know who they are. They don't know certain aspects of themselves, and they feel a sense of repression and guilt and shame about a natural part of existence. It would just be like shaming people for eating food or breathing. And so I'm not gonna die without sex, but the entire species will die without sex. And so that's how I say it's analogous to eating food and drinking water. It's like a necessity for life. Maybe not the sustenance of your own life, but for life in general, we need this. And so I realized that when the individual starts to look at what are my stories around sexuality and how can I embody it in a healthy way, they overcome all the social programming, all the religious dogma, all the familial traditions of oppression or rape or molestation, or all that stuff can be healed. And we can start to express this fundamental aspect of who we are. Like really, it's like one of the base. It's like one of the, it's a huge part of who we are. That's why you see so much like intensity around the Pride movement and the LGBT community and around sexuality, like the oppression of sexuality. Why is there so much energy in it? It's because it literally is not half of who you are, but it's a massive part. And so people find themselves more when they allow themselves to express not only their sexuality, but the baggage that goes along with it. So if you can process and be real with yourself around the emotional turmoil and psychological challenges and suffering that we carry, even when expressing ourselves in a healthy way, then they start to overcome this aspect of the psyche, the subconscious, that is not only affecting their sexuality, but affecting all other areas of their life. And their relationship to money, relationship to their family, their parents, and just relating with other humans, even on a platonic level, um, all the aspects of life. So for me, my sexuality has always been a little bit counterculture. I'm a bit ahead of my time in all respects. Basically, like, your sex doesn't matter to me, what genitalia you have. I can have sex with you without even touching you. And if what matters to me is that we have an energetic resonance, that I can actually feel you, you can actually feel me, and without any physical contact. There's a lot of emotion that runs through us and energy that's palpable. And for me, that's more important than the way you look or the job you have, your social status, your sex, your age, your race. And I'm willing to share sexual energy with anybody, but actual sexual contact, I'm very, very choosy, and there has to be an alignment of all of the energy centers, meaning our morals and values, the way you live your life and who you are as an individual has to be in alignment, as well as there has to be, because sexuality is the razor's edge. Everything has to be in the light and healthy for all beings in order for me to dive into that with you. Not that I'm opposed to exploring sexuality, but for me, it's very important for that to be really healthy, for us to really dive into the physical aspects of it. But my sexuality has been so open with whomever there's a resonance that it has I've had to keep it kind of hidden when I was a kid. It wasn't talked about to be able to be so open and so free and so loving with whomever you feel a connection with. It was only like you had these certain people, it had to be the opposite sex, and it had to be, you had to live up to other people's expectations and all this stuff, family pressures and social pressures and all that stuff. And so I've had to overcome my own guilt and shame around sexuality. And also, for me, it's the spice of life. It's like, it's that flirtation, the energy of desire, like, even without even having sex with you, just like us wanting each other, and like that feeling of letting that run between us, the sexual energy, the eros. That for me is like, I mean, it's one of the main reasons why I live, and it's one of the things that I've always explored constantly, because it just makes everything so interesting and fun. It's like you crash your car, and it's like, I don't care. Somebody drains your bank account, they steal your ATM. It's like, I'm in love or whatever, And so I realize how important these kinds of like in love, passionate, like even if it's in lust, just that pink cloud like feeling of like, connection with somebody else is a huge part of what brings that beauty in life. And it's not the only thing. I think that we need to be whole without it, but the sexuality in itself, if you allow yourself to dive into it, it can be one of the things that brings you beyond your mental limitations to your own self-expression and your own interpretation of who you are as an individual, and change the way that you experience life and yourself and your relationships with everything. It becomes kind of a jump off point, because it's such a major thing that you can get feedback from immediately, because there's like an actual physical expression of your either contraction or your openness. Like, you're moving towards your goals, or are you shutting down? Are you in your trigger and in your wound? So we get a direct feedback immediately in the 3D world of how we're relating to our own mind and our own blocks and our own body and feelings. And so it becomes a massive access point for us to raise our self-awareness and learn skills of being able to master the mind, master connect with our emotional body, and connect with people on deeper levels.
Amazing. Really enjoying your transmission of what you're sharing, because I feel like you have a very similar outlook to me, where it's like just the vision is so clear of what can occur in the world because you're already living it, and that really excites me. What I have experienced in these experiences I have of seeing the vision and seeing how clear and how obvious it all feels to me, is that not everyone can feel that. There is these, like, I see in you this part I see in myself, where moving through the conditioning is just becoming more and more simplified for us. I'm looking at all the time, seeing where my collapses are around like sex, love, romance, and like relating alignment, and seeing where I'm attaching those two energies and pulling them apart even more to feel the purity of each of those energies. And so what I'm wanting to ask you about is, like, within the work that you do with men, what is the conditioning that you're seeing that is having that collapse? Where are you seeing people are not able to break through and see how the simplicity of what life can be like?
Well, I'd say that's a great question, and I'd say that there's two things existing at the same time here. There are people who have that conditioning, and they have, like, men have this problem that they're facing psychologically, and then there are people who are not able to get it. It's not the same person. Like, when men come to me and they're expressing that their conditioning, they get it. I mean, and they already have the desire and the awareness that there's something greater than what they're experiencing. And I'll tell you what the symptoms are of their anguish and what's causing their suffering in a moment. But the people who don't get it are the ones who are not taking ownership over their experience. They have an external locus of control, and what they do is they blame and shame, and they judge. They look in the outside world for blame for their internal experience, their emotions and their mental reactions and all that. And they're still like, shame on you, world, you need to change because I'm uncomfortable with you. And those people are the ones who are not able to get it. It's like they don't understand that everything that we experience in life is our own making. Even if somebody is attacking you, somehow you've written that in the book of life because you want to learn some sort of lesson around either standing up for what you believe in, or having a strong no, or being able to show up empathetically for other people when they're in a bad space, or whatever it is. Like, everything that we experience, no matter what, if it seems like somebody else is like a perpetrator, we have an opportunity to look at our belief systems and the way that we're reacting to the present moment, and gain a clearer understanding of ourselves. And those people don't do that. They don't look at every opportunity and every situation and every person as a learning opportunity. They just contract, and they want to stay away from their challenges. They don't want to look inward. They want to blame the other person so that they don't have to look at their stuff. And those people don't get it. Now, what men are showing, what men are coming to me with most of the time, I'd say, is, and it's beautiful because I get the full range. I get men who are already in their divinity. They are integrating in the softer feminine aspects of masculinity, and they also are connecting with their power, and they're activated like in their passion projects. They have families or children, or they're like just like they're already change makers and just beautiful beings, all the way to the man who is just a guy working in a cubicle, or a tradie, or somebody who his relationship is failing because he doesn't know emotions at all. It's like, I don't get this stuff, and like, so there's a full range of people. But what's uniform across the board, and I have like lawyers in London, and like there's software engineers in Russia, and there's like, I mean, it's like the full freaking range of people. But the same thing I see showing up over and over again is what I've known already before I even open my doors to work with men, is that there is a loop that we are in. And the loop is, something happened to create pain, guilt, and shame, and that suppressed sexuality. Now I'm talking about in the general field of humanity, and it suppressed sexuality. And if you suppress anything, oppress anything, it becomes unhealthy. And it comes out in weird ways, like anger. If you just suppress it, like try to push it down, then you blow up for no reason. Like you break your shoelace, then you smash the TV. You know what I mean? Like, So it's the same thing with sexuality. It's like you oppress sexuality, you suppress it, and what it does is people, they turn to pornography and they rape, or they go to prostitution, or Viagra, or things like that, right? So that happens from oppressing it. It's just like we're seeing the problem, which creates pain, suffering, and shame, create further suppression that perpetuates more unhealthy behavior and beliefs around our sexuality, and that suppression is basically that I feel bad about me. I don't feel like my sex is healthy, and I feel oppressed by you too. Like, I can't even tell you I think you're pretty And so what I see is a lot of men who have a lot of rape fantasy. They have a lot of violence that they want to express, you know, hitting, choking, you know, maybe being aggressive with when they're getting oral sex, or just wanting to be violent with women. And I believe that all these, I'm going to talk about that specific one right now. All these perversions that we have are also a source of pleasure for us and a source of pleasure for our partner if it's consensual and it's what they want to experience. So, you know, I've had the blessing of being able to dive into all of the weird things that would move through our head, whether it be pedophilia or rape or violence or any of those weird sexual perversions, without actually having to create any harm to somebody else, by creating a scenario with somebody who actually fantasizes about the same thing, and being able to explore that and then process the emotions that come up, the guilt and the shame and the pain, feeling the elation and the beauty of being able to experience that thing. And it's like, wow, how amazing was that? And the person's like, thank you so much. And you feel seen, you feel accepted in a way you've never been accepted before. These aspects of yourself, which probably come up every single time you either masturbate or have sex, but you never share them, is a huge source of pain for guys. And to be able to experience it in a healthy way and be celebrated by the person is like this massive level of like acceptance of self and healing. And then also like sharing what emotionally is coming up for you as a being, having been oppressing yourself for so long, being able to express yourself that way, that's healing in itself. And then those particular things, they lose their power, because the things that we fantasize about that we don't have, the things that we desire and we don't get them, they hold a lot of weight in our psychological experience. Like we really, that's all we think about. I mean, you could have everything you ever wanted in your life, but this one thing that you don't get that you want, it seems like it's going to bring you so much more richness out of life, because especially if you're connecting that fantasy with orgasm, so through masturbation or having sex with somebody and fantasizing, it becomes Pavlovian. The mind and the body link together, where you get this hormonal release, powerful hormonal release every time you think about that thing, because you've already been having orgasm with this thought pattern over and over again. So it really controls our experience. And then when you have them, then you transcend them actually controlling who you are, and you can start to move towards higher planes of directing your attention and your awareness towards other things, that these things don't control your experience anymore. You can go into working on deeper aspects of your human experience beyond this, and even beyond yourself. Because if we're not able to experience all aspects of ourselves, we feel fragmented, we feel lost, we don't feel like we accept ourselves, and nobody just feel separate from life and from others. And that means that we are only going to be focused on that, like, how do I get to a place of wholeness? And we can't focus on spiritual endeavors, financial endeavors, higher, better, deeper relationships, or on what's going on in politics and the ecology, if we're just focusing on those base level things. And so people who experience these things can move beyond them very quickly and then they just like start shining. But the other things I see is like, how is this playing out? Is most of the time it's like guys, they have a particular thing they want to experience. Maybe it's not rape, maybe it's not pedophilia, maybe it's not violence, maybe it's something else. And it's like I have a fantasy about a particular kind of girl, or maybe it's things that are like, I want to be with a man, or I want to be with a transvestite, or I want whatever it is. I'm just throwing these things out there. It's playing out as I want this thing. And it could be something really basic, like there's this beautiful woman that I have always fancied, and I'd never been able to talk to her because I have shame around my sexuality. All of these things basically are that I feel like I'm going to have negative consequences by expressing my desires. And that's what it is, the fear of negative consequences. Like either he's going to cause harm to that person, or they're going to reject him. And so if we look at the blanket underlying belief is that I'm not going to be accepted in my expression of self, I'm going to be rejected. And the brain equates this with the possibility of a threat of death, basically, because when we were first humans, after we evolved from monkeys, alien DNA or something, and we were proliferating this planet, we lived in tribal societies that used, like, there was fierce egalitarianism where we shared all of our resources and everything. We shared parenting, we shared hunting, we shared homes, we shared lovers, we shared meat, we shared everything. And so if you were rejected by your tribe, that meant certain death. Like you got kicked out. There was man-eating plants, insects bigger than us. And like, I mean, I don't know what else was here, saber-toothed tigers and everything. People were dying. And over time, it changed the actual structure of the brain Like the people who like assimilated when like the ass kissed and they were afraid of possible death, they survived. So they had an aspect of the brain called the limbic system, the hindbrain, developed into the fight, flight, freeze response, which is or tend and befriend, aka ass kissing. If I kiss your ass and if I conform to what you want, then I will not be kicked out of the tribe and I won't die. And so those people are our ancestors because the other ones didn't survive. And that old structure of the brain is antiquated, and it controls people because it shuts off the cortical, which is logic and reason, to be able to actually use deduction and like think and like rise above our emotional reaction, because it shuts off the cortical. But there are ways you can overcome that. There's ways you can turn back on that region of the brain. Nonetheless, that perception of the threat of death by rejection is still with us today. And people, although they don't realize it, when they want to express themselves, if someone's going to reject them, their mind believes that if they're rejected, that they will die. And the only thing, if we look at this intelligently, we can see the only thing that's really a threat of dying is our limited perspective of ourself, our ego identity. That's what's that threat of death here. And so the men do not want to harm themselves. They don't want to die because they're being rejected. This is subconscious. The conscious mind says, I don't want to be rejected by people. I don't want to be judged. And I don't want to create negative consequences. I don't want to harm other people. Whatever it is they want, even if it's something that's just like basic vanilla sex, like normal, just like saying, I'm interested in you. And so what I believe is going on here is that we need to change our relationship to challenging emotions so that men can deal with the challenges that come up with expressing your authenticity, and so could women in general. And this is not a sex thing, this is a human thing. If we change our relationship to our emotions and we say, I'm willing to experience even the most challenging emotions, and I have a mental game where a skill set that I use to be able to analyze my stories I tell myself about this current situation and control my thought patterns so that I'm able to speak to myself in a way that's healthy. And I can tailor my experience in these moments of challenge so that I can actually express myself in a healthy way and and if I am rejected, I have the tools to deal with the emotions that arise. This right here is what I'm seeing mostly in men, is that they don't have the emotional intelligence skills to deal with their own fears and the stuff that would come up, the emotions that would come up from really expressing their sexuality with people and being raw and real and open. And once they get these skills, they immediately understand, like, I accept myself and love myself, and I love myself even more when I'm being like this. And so it's an access point for them to start moving beyond these blocks.
Amazing. So we're going to bring it towards a close, and I want to ask you, what is, like, I'm hearing is that men need emotional agility to be able to function in this world. And when they do that, then all these pieces around sexuality and around just like finance and careers and women and all the things that they're wanting to create for themselves and have this spiritual evolution will just occur as a byproduct of creating that emotional agility. So what is it that what is like one thing that you would like to give as a takeaway for men to have to start this journey with sexuality?
Let me say, I think that what's most important is your authenticity in your life. It's like, we look at this, like every single relationship that we've ever had, including you, sister, every single 100% of them outside of the relationships that you're in right now have ended. They have transitioned into a sacred sister brotherhood or a friendship or just a cordial connection on text messages and calls periodically, like every single one. And so if we look at this statistically, we can say that our future or current relationships will also have the same thing. And so what's important is the one relationship that you will never lose is your relationship to yourself. So it's important for us to start developing a deeper relationship to I. And how do we do that? Is we relate to the aspects of our mind and our emotionality that we suppress, that we are like shy away from and that we're scared of. Because these things that we are like trying to avoid, we are actually still within us, and they're creating a frequency, a wavelength that adjusts the molecules within the matter that makes up our body to be a particular frequency of that energy. And we become that energy that we're trying to avoid, and we send that out into the field, and we attract situations and people into our life that continue to resonate at that level. And so the most important thing we can do is face our kryptonites, our Achilles heels, our weaknesses, and really know ourselves, raise our self-awareness of what our default patterns are and what are the ways that you've been living that are actually not in alignment with your higher self, that are not moving you towards your goals, and start to develop those. And I would say that those things will reveal to you the exact path that you need to start taking, and it's going to be different for each person, but I'd say in general, you're going to have to kick the porn habit, kick the Viagra habit. You're going to have to start being more emotionally expressive and move the blockages from the past experiences that are stopping you from feeling feelings that happened in the past, because the contraction of the energy centers from your solar plexus or your throat are stopping new energy from flowing through you, which is the sexual energy perhaps that you're sharing with people or that you want to share with people. And so we have to allow ourselves to feel the full range of the emotions that are stored within us, because the pendulum will only swing to one side as far as it can to the other. If we don't allow ourselves to go into these challenging emotions, we can't go into these higher vibrational frequencies of sexual bliss, love, and gratitude. And so I'd say that that's the access point that I think most men are going to need. And I think that that's what's stopping them from having not only sexuality, but depth in their relationships. If you want to go deep in your relationships, even beyond sex, you must work on your mental relationship to past experiences and current experiences and your emotions.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to release this one. I think this is a bit of a different flavor to the other ones we've done with the podcast. So yeah, I really feel that the kind of men that are going to be able to vibrate and understand the level of vision that you want to bring through really excites me. So I want to just wrap it up by sharing, like, if you are a man that is looking to understand more about this like level of embodiment and emotional agility, where can we have the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy that we're launching for men, which is a sexuality school to have men be able to move in the space of becoming a sexuality leader. And I'm definitely looking for men that can understand that level of vision that you have. So this will be exciting to see what comes out of this. And is there anything that you want to share on the ways that we can get in touch with you to work with you?
I'm on the internet. On my website is intomeic.love, and you can find me on Facebook at Rites of Passage, and you can find me on Instagram at sacred.rebel.lion. Get at me if you have like quick questions that I can answer in just a 1-minute voicemail. I'm happy to answer any question you have. I'm here for you, brothers. I believe in you. I know that you have a great potential, and the only thing that's going to change is your capacity to realize that potential. I mean, you're perfect already right now. You just need to move your mind out of the way so that you can allow the strength and the vision and to move through you, and the capacity to start coming through you now. So if you need help, I'm here for you. And yeah, you can find me on the net.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today. I've really enjoyed everything that you've shared. Really appreciate it. Thank you. See you later.